Welcome to a brand new series entitled The Bloodbath. I have my good friend and fellow Carrot Corner Pro, Mr. Akshar Patel, joining me today to tear the willing participants' games to shreds. We have got consent from these people. We're not just like exposing them as fish and saying these guys play so bad. Look, they've said, please tear my game apart in public. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, Akshar. This should be fun.
Yeah, same. Let's get into it.
Let's go. So good cop, bad cop. That's our normal gig when we do this. We'll see who's going to be the good cop and who's going to be the bad cop today. First hand, we have 9 of clubs, ace of spades in the small blind. We go for the open. Villain calls. Queen, jack, 7. You can play not range bet here, but like a reasonable amount of bet. Is this one of the hands that just doesn't bet? Like this strikes me as like, it probably does with like some of the backdoors, but probably mostly checks in theory, I would think, ace 9.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind simplifying if you really don't want to kind of study every single board texture in this spot, but it is what it is. I don't think ace 9 bets, personally. It doesn't seem like a betting hand. It just seems like a hand that we have to kind of check fold and hope sometimes occasionally check down and win.
Yeah, and I think if you're in a pool where you think people stab too much against checks here, you could turn it into a bet for that reason or something. It's not going to be a huge deal.
I like that reasoning if you think that people just stab too often when we check to them and we don't get to just see our next 2 cards often enough, in which case we just bet and take the fold equity.
Yep, sounds like a good exploit to me. 9 of hearts on the turn, and I think we are bang in the middle here. I'd normally be playing a mix of block and a bigger bet here, something close to pot. But I think this hand is just going to be checking all the time. I think it's a bit too weak to put any more money in the pot.
Absolutely, this is a horrible bet.
Akshar is the bad cop. I am now the good cop automatically.
This is just kind of like not very good at all. This doesn't accomplish anything that you think. I don't like. What are you trying to accomplish here with this small size? I mean, I'm not saying that block is a bad size. Like block is completely reasonable here on the 9. It's just this hand doesn't have any business blocking. This hand has clearly become a medium tier hand, like a bluff catch kind of hand, not like a value bet hand. I think a good jack is probably as thin as you can go. Like a very good jack, like ace jack, maybe king jack, because it's got additional equity of the 10.
Yeah.
But that's probably much it.
I think it's about understanding that third pair is not always just third pair. Like when there's a straight possible and you happen to have one of the third pair that doesn't have a straight draw, it's pretty hard not to have a straight draw here if you have one pair, because an 8, a 10, and a king all give you a straight possibility, and obviously like a queen, a jack, a 7, and a 9 all give you a pair. So when you have third pair with specifically an ace or 6 or something like that, you actually have like a way worse hand than normal. Your equity's lower than normal, and you kind of need to factor that in. Generally, third pair doesn't block bet the turn unless A, you've checked the flop and they've checked back, and B, the texture is drier and safer and generally lower and harder to connect with. So I think there's just like a polarization mistake going on here. The player is not really accepting or not really able to process like how miserable their hand really is here. It's not just third pair top kicker, it's actually kind of bad to medium and just a pure check. I agree.
You also block some hands that you want to get called by, like king 9 and 10 9 and things like that. So it's kind of like you're shooting yourself in the foot here, really. Yeah,
and it's a small bet, but still, like when you invest 3 big blinds with a hand that can invest no big blinds, like there's going to be some EV loss associated with that. However, the poker gods are smiling on our hero today, and we do river 2 pair. What are your thoughts now?
Actually, like this is an interesting 2 pair, since that it's basically very difficult for villain to have a very strong hand on this run out, since king 10 raises turn, 2 pairs raise flop or turns very often, especially when we go 1/3. So conceptually, I think we have enough equity to overbet the river, but do I think overbet is going to perform poorly against a range that's full of like weak jack X and now demoted queen X? Probably. So I'm probably not going to overbet the river, even though I think conceptually we do have the equity to overbet the river.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis. And I don't think villain will have enough like ace 6 of diamonds here, etc. in real life either. I think they're just betting those or raising turn like too frequently with those kind of hands getting a bit trigger happy. So I agree. I think the best thing to do here is definitely to bet, because if you check, I don't think your opponent's going to put enough bluffs in their range here. They're going to have showdown value a lot. I don't really think they're going to turn enough pair, like bad pair, into bluffs here. Like maybe they're meant to bluff 10-7 or something when you check here. I don't know exactly, or king 7 or something. Not sure, but I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe they have enough king 5, king 4 that they don't actually. I'm not sure. But when you unblock the queen and the jack, you unblock 2 hands that are calling you but not betting, and therefore you should really like tailor your strategy towards betting rather than checking. You have kind of condensing blockers because you're unblocking the condensed middling part of the opponent's range and blocking the hands that they would value bet with when you have the ace here, right? So I think you just want to go ahead and bet here, and I would just bet like, I don't know, 75% seem good to you?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, do they even bluff catch a queen enough on this run out? And if they don't, like, I kind of changed my mind, which is kind of funny. And I just want to like overbet again and just be like, cool, you don't bluff catch a queen enough, so let's just try to get money from ace 10 or ace 5 diamonds. But I think 75 is probably okay. Like, I'm splitting hairs at this point, and it gets confusing.
And I think another issue is like that you might well run into like king 10 sometimes, like not once or anything,
exactly.
but there's some of it. So I think overbetting is out for me. I think checking is out for me. I'm between like a block bet and a B75 here, but I think I just favor the bigger bet and like tailor the hands line to its equity as we teach in the Carrot Poker School, which you can grab at carrotcorner.com. Did you know, XR, you can save 700 UK pounds right now if you get all of the grades together, 1, 2, 3, and our new course, Grady.
If you get all 4 of them.
If you get all of them together, you save £700.
Wow. What's the price on all 4?
It's $12.99, which is a lot less than, so you're talking about 40, 50, like 50 hours of footage, really exams, you know, feedback, all that sort of stuff. But hey, I don't want this to turn into a giant plug.
No,
Let's see what they do. Let's see if our hero finds a good bet size here. Yeah, feels good. It's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool,
do get paid off. Should we guess the hand? I'm going to go for queen 10 off.
Damn.
I've monopolized all the combos of queen 10 off. You can't have any now.
Queen 10 off. Man, queen 10 off, I would be tempted to raise. This is 50 now. I have no idea. I'm just gonna say he's got like ace 10.
And we lose.
There
you go. Yeah. That's the other hand, actually. I was going to mention that.
I did mention that at the end.
Yeah.
I mentioned that at the end. Yeah,
so that's also why I don't want to overbet, right? We just run into the ace jack.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that we didn't get raised there. Okay, I guess people don't like raising in this bracket. Because like I do think that he can raise like for this size, like for sure.
Probably with like the second toppest 2 pair he can. I do think it plays kind of thin in theory, but in reality, yeah, once you've blocked the turn and in the real world, I just don't think there's too many combos of straights or sets or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't have to raise absolutely massive, but we can raise a little, okay? Anyway, next hand.
Okay, king's in the big blind here. We go for the 3-bet. Villain calls small blind. Ace, queen, 8 rainbow. It goes check, check. I think big blind versus small blind, you can build some check here. Like you don't have the same linear range that you have small blind versus button or something.
I think it's very reasonable to build check. So you don't have to bet, you know, like we don't have to just put money in. We can build a reasonable checking range.
Okay, and what are you thinking about turn here after villain checks the second time?
I'm checking again, probably.
Yep. So here, the investment ceiling of the hand, we use this term a lot on this channel, is not very high. So like maybe you can put in a bet at some point, maybe, depending on what happens. You certainly don't have to make that bet now, and there are some advantages to checking. Like you get to see what villain does on the river. People are quite transparent at these stakes with their sizes. You can also just get someone to bluff a hand that is not very good here and might fold turn, like king 9 of clubs or something. Oh, you block that. But you get the point, guys. You get the point. We do go check, check again, which is nice. Villain bets really tiny on river. I mean, I'm just calling. Like, I think you could actually have a value beater here. I think that means that, well, I know that means that you can beat not just bluffs, but maybe like a sort of king queen or queen jack that's trying to get thin value in this spot as well. And also villain's range is still quite wide. There's still scope for bluffing. You will run into an ace a lot here, but I think this is just a call and only a call. Yeah,
never folding, never raising. So call is the only option. 1 in 5. I mean, it's a very low threshold and people will bluff random hands occasionally, and they will bet a queen. So yeah, never folding.
Yep, I've seen people fold here though, and I've seen them fold for reasons such as this feels value-y, like really vague reasons. And it's like, well, hell yeah, it feels value-y. You need 20% equity. They're meant to be bluffing only 20%. That's like a 4-to-1 ratio of value to bluffs. Of course it should feel value-y, but that doesn't mean that you don't achieve your equity goal, especially if you can beat value bets and not just bluffs. So countdown from 3. Let's see what our hero does.
If he folds, I'll be very upset. Yeah,
he calls. Cool. Yep, nicely played hand. Not much to say about that one. Ace, king of clubs, we go for the 3-bet here. Small blind versus button. These are all just random hands that saw the turn, by the way, guys, but the pot's a reasonable size. Another 3-bet pot, 10, 10, 9. Think your range wants to bet pretty frequently on this board. I think you can use big bets here, like B60 or something, or half pot. You can probably also use small bets.
Yeah, I was just thinking, do we not half pot because it's 10, 10, 9? And if it was lower, we like go for small sizes. But when it's lower, we go for bigger sizes. But I think it's fine.
It might be that like 10, 10, 9, Jack, Jack 9, and 3-bet pots are still okay. I think they're still okay. I think like
queens is probably like the threshold, right?
Bingo.
Queen.
Yeah, I think when it's queen, queen, rag or king, king, rag, now we just start using small bets because now we've like there's more of a nut concentration in villain's range. Like villain's going to flat way more ace, queen off and king, queen off pre than they are hands like ace 10 off or queen 10 off or something like that.
That just gets 4-bet.
Right.
Or folded. So yeah. Seems good.
So check.
Checking is not a problem mistake either. It's not a mistake.
Okay, so this turn I feel like we have a really easy check. Our hand has just become less nutty. Like we've lost our backdoor flush draw potential, and it's a bad turn for range, and we have a hand that still has like a good amount of pot share. So check seems like the most normal play here with ace king. Any objection?
No, I think the only play that we should be doing here.
Yep. Oh, these bets are just like, I'm getting the sense that this student is just like making lots of polarization mistakes in his game. Like we've not seen that many hands. We also saw a couple of other hands earlier because my recording broke. I got the green screen of death earlier, which was pretty upsetting after we reviewed some fun ones. But even in those hands, we saw like a little bit of like polarization error-y like type stuff, right? So I think this student needs to work on understanding that the middle of range generally has a higher check EV than bet EV on the turn in the river. And sometimes on the flop, though that depends on the strategy you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about it, like when villain has a hand like ace queen or ace jack that bricks up, we we usually get to the river and get to win, right? So we don't really want to bluff a hand like ace king, which blocks folds in a way, like ace 5 of clubs. These hands are going to fold. King queen maybe doesn't fold turn, but will fold river. So like it doesn't really make sense to bluff a hand like this. And you can turn your check back ace 5 of diamonds or stuff like that. It's a lot lower into bluffs if you want to have some bluffs there.
Yeah, and I think this is the sort of spot where you probably need to have some standards with your bluffs. Like I think ace king,
definitely,
meets the criteria in terms of redraw because it has two really good pair outs, but it's doing too well as a check. Whereas something like ace jack or king queen or something has stuff going on. It's not like totally dead. I think like ace 4 here is probably just a check fold. Like I don't think you get to bet that out of position. But I think something like king queen here or ace queen here even is just a way more sensible hand to start bluffing with than this. I'm really not a fan of this at all. Think about it this way as well. Villain's range contains very few better hands than yours that will fold here. They might fold 4s, they might not. They might fold 5s, they might not. They're probably not going to fold 6s, 7s, and they're certainly not folding anything bigger than that. So in terms of better hands that you can get to fold, there really aren't many. And whenever that's the case on the turn or the river, you should usually take the EV of checking rather than turning the hand into a bluff. Okay, so probably we just fold out some hand that we're crushing there, which is a good result. But the problem is we lose a bunch of money. We're burning extra money against the parts of villain's range that don't fold there. And that's why this is a costly play. It's obviously fine this time, but that doesn't
I will say one thing that maybe helps this play look slightly better is that turn ranges are very, very weak in this configuration. Once he checks the flop, we almost greenlight. The 8 is a horrible card, but like I am discounting a lot of strong combos that aren't specifically pocket 8s in 50-0 when they check the flop.
Yep.
So that makes this actually a little bit better. Doesn't make it great, just makes it a bit better.
Yeah, I think it's still a mistake, but I agree it's not as bad as it would be against a well-constructed checking range that was checking back like 9x more and 10x more and flush draws more and stuff like that. Hands that are never folding, essentially. Okay, cool.
Pretty much.
So bit of an error there in the polarization front. King queen off now in the big blind. We go for the call, king 10-6. I think call is normal here. You can probably raise, although it's better against late position. I don't think it's horrible to raise here, but I think it's mostly just call. Facing overbet, you have to call again. I don't think there's anything else to be done.
Yeah, there's nothing to be done. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's obviously a spot where our EV starts to plummet because our hand becomes more of a bluff catcher than one that beats value, as it was on the flop. But what can you do? You're still chopping with king queen value bets. You're still beating loads of bluffs. And honestly, on double Broadway, I think this is like one of the more overbluff textures because it's really easy just to have a gut shot and an offsuit variety that's abundant combinatorically speaking, and then just blast it.
There's just so many draws here, like queen, jack, 6, 7 hearts, ace, queen, queen 9, jack 9. It's like a 4 million gut shots on this texture, and we have a king, so we block some value combos. So that's pretty good for us. So yeah, definitely never folding king queen. Not looking to overfold this node either to a person who constructs overbet, because immediately I can assume that if they're constructing overbet, then they have some idea of what they're doing, which means they will have some bluffs here. And on a texture that there's many bluffs, it's easier to overbluff than underbluff.
Absolutely. I think you absolutely nailed it. I love working with, the other coaches from our community, from our Discord group, because you just don't have to do anything. You just sit there and they say what you were going to say anyway. It's a fantastic feeling. Actually, as one of our senseis, by the way, on our Discord, if you do grab the Carrot Poker School or private coaching from me, then you'll get access to that server and, you're one of the people that gives feedback on hands and stuff like that. And, with good reason, you can see why Axar has earned himself the sensei title with that answer. I love the idea of like line equals player type equals let's go from there, right? So by saying they overbet, we know that fish generally don't do that. Therefore, this is now like someone competent, and it's easy for a competent player to overbluff. Done. We're calling. We're certainly not overfolding. Okay, good. We check the river. They check back. End of hand. If they do bet there, it's another puzzle, right?
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, like, I think once they overbet turn, there's a lot of giving up, which is normal in theory.
Yep.
But like a hand like this probably should continue sometimes, unblocking some hearts and things like that. And they don't continue as often enough. But we also have to think about like, what is the minimum value bet on this river? I mean, I've studied this, so I know that, hands such as ace king actually cannot value bet the river once they overbet the turn from this position, which sounds strange.
That does sound strange. I would have thought aces, ace king could like be 75, and then other hands could overbet, and then like worse than king jack or something would check, or king queen or something would check. It surprises me the ace king can't.
Yeah, ace king checks back a lot of runouts when it overbets a turn from earlier positions, because we very much have to fold this hand if he bets. We actually defend only very strong hands on the river because we don't build many races to overbet on the turn, right? So we're still technically not as capped as maybe.
I guess the idea would be that we do build quite a lot of races on flop though, and the 5 doesn't give us that much new value, nor does the 4. I guess we have like 6-4, 6-5 or something, king 5, but we don't have a ton. But then again, like we'd much rather call with like king 7 or something probably than king queen, because we're unblocking a lot more bluffs with that hand. But yeah, I agree, this hand should follow through sometimes. I think ace king on the river's close. It surprises me that it's a check, but I'll take your word for it that perhaps it is.
Yeah, it was surprising to me. I mean, I wouldn't check ace king on the river because I think humans do a bad job of slow playing against overbets on the turn even.
Right. Yeah.
So I would just probably like bet a 3/4 sizing with ace king on the river and hope I hope I get called by like king queen or something.
Absolutely. And I don't think people are good at folding hands like king queen. This is called fortune reversal, right? Like you start off here on the flop and your hand is really good, and then trying to adapt to the fact that a hand that's so high up in absolute terms, like it's the top pair, second biggest kicker, is worse to call the river now than a hand like 6-7, which is a phenomenal river call, or raise. It's a really hard thing to wrap your head around, but the more you study poker, the more you'll start to prefer 6-7 to king queen when you face that river bet, but your subconscious will not want to accept it, so there's a lot of unlearning of bad habits to do there, I would think.
Absolutely. It's a funny spot, but it's a very interesting one once you get into it.
Okay, queen's here. We get 3-bet button cut off. We 4-bet. Villain calls.
So I just want to start with like 200 big blind deep. So just let's just remember that.
Okay, so I have not studied confession time. I have not studied
deep
4-bet pots, actually. Some guy has. There's some guy out there right now going, I've studied this actually.
Yes, we're winging it. We're winging it from here.
All right, let's wing it. So I would think that makes us hate the monotone, not hate the monotone more in general with range, but certainly like downgrade our aces and ace king in this context, because now the price we pay when we run into a flush is much greater. So I'd imagine that we're less happy about like building massive pots with high investment ceilings when we have hands like ace of clubs, ace of hearts. So I still think, however, our range is doing great here overall, and I think like 10% pot or something looks like a good way to start. Any thoughts?
Yeah. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with just starting with a small bet. I don't mind 20% pot, 10% pot, whatever you want to do. It's completely fine with me. One thing I will say is the way I build, if I'm playing 4-bet pots really deep, and I'm assuming that most people don't construct well-constructed 5-bet ranges, I actually just 4-bet a lot of suited stuff. So like I'd have like some jack to the diamonds, like very playable hands, basically, instead of 4-betting things like ace queen off, which I just don't 4-bet.
I hate ace queen off. There's something about that hand that I just want to put it in the bin. It's like dealt to me in the cutoff, and I just want to like open fold it. I hate it that much.
So yeah, I have a lot more suited cards in this kind of formation at 200 big blinds deep, because I assume that people will not 5-bet enough. So I'm going to be able to realize my equity in a situation where we're the 4-bet racer, which is favorable in a way. I
agree. I like that. I like the idea of like taking a hand that could normally be spoiled by facing jam and 4-betting it because they just don't have that jam option at those stack depths like they would at 100 bigs. I think that's a fantastic point. Yeah, okay. So let's see what hero does. We start with check, which is also fine. No problem with that.
I think it's fine. I do think that I'm going to say that I think betting is a superior option. And that's kind of a strong thing to say. But like if I think about it conceptually, there's a lot of pairs with a diamond that we're going to definitely get value from on the flop. And I'm not really afraid of anything. Like, if he raises, it's just like, we're dead. I mean, there's nothing more to say. It's just good to just start with a bet, I think, when it's quite easy to play the hand. I don't really think I want to check here.
And if you do check, I don't think this will be... I think this will be an underbluff
yeah, it
flop
won't be
node.
overbluffed.
There aren't that many
like
underbluffed flop stab nodes. Like, most flop stab spots are actually overbluffed, but this one in a 4-bet pot, this deep is definitely underbluffed. So checking here with the intention of calling. Yeah, you're going to have to call if you face a bet, but why not just start with 5th pot, 15% pot? Something like that. We call that feathering, by the way, in the Carrot Poker School. And that's because the really big bets are called sledgehammers. So what's the opposite of a sledgehammer? A feather. If you hit someone with a feather, it doesn't really hurt. They have to continue, like most of their range. Okay, so we go for check. Villain checks back. We turn the set. Looks like a spot where if we bet, we will get fold equity like 99.6% of the time in a spot like this. I feel like that's not true actually, because there are loads of pocket pair plus diamond, but it just means betting is way better than checking, right? Like, if most of their range that invests here is pocket pair plus diamond anyway, and they're going to do very little bluffing because they're not going to just bet with like 7s very often, then I think you just bet here, right? Like in the real world.
Absolutely. There's just no, I cannot conceive of a way to slow play here, because this board is just running out in a way that humans just won't bluff this. It's just,
exactly.
They just look at this and they'd be like, no, not doing it.
Yep, so I don't like slow play here either. Okay, what does Hero do? Countdown from 3.
He's gonna bet.
He does bet?
Yeah.
I maybe bet bigger, because if you think about Villain's range here, anything with a flush draw is going to pay... there's going to be a lot of inelasticity, right? Like, Villain will not be elastic enough to sizing here. Anything that's queen or king is going to call a bigger bet, because that's just how the human patterning generally goes here. It's like paradigmatic thinking. People aren't like, oh, well, I have ace queen, but I can't call that sizing. I would have called a few big blinds less. That's not generally how they think. Top pair, same thing. And then anything like 8s with a diamond, it's just not likely to fold to half pot. So I'm a fan of like B60 or something here, actually.
Oh, B60. Okay, that's interesting. I was going to say like B50.
Yeah, B50 is good.
I mean, obviously we're splitting hairs, but like, I think there does come a point where they will start folding their dominated diamond hands.
Sure. Yeah, we have to find that point. Agreed.
Yeah. Cool.
Villain calls. Not flush time. Unless he has deuce 4 of diamonds, which seems... Imagine you lost here to deuce 4 of diamonds. Like, do you think you'd ever be able to get over it?
I mean, if you bet and he raises all in, then you're just seeing deuce 4 of diamonds. It's like, how am I losing? Wow, how? I'd probably complain to the poker site if I lost to deuce 4 of diamonds here.
Yep. So again, if we check, it's going to go check a lot, right? Like,
yeah, there's no way we're checking.
We're betting big. I think we're betting like... Yeah. Given that the thing we're getting called by now primarily is flush. Okay, here's a good tip for playing against humans. When the main thing that's supposed to look you up has a high absolute hand strength name, like full house, flush, straight, 3 of a kind, etc., you're going to want to bet really big against humans, generally speaking.
Very big.
So I think pot here is nice.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, the right number, I think, is just pot. We're going to get looked up by the jack of diamonds and the 10 of diamonds enough that we want to just bet as big as we can.
Yep. So I'd say check here is like a gargantuan error. Like, it's a really horrible play. And I'd say like block here is also a really horrible play. So I really need you, student. We need you to go close to pot on this river. We need you to do something big here. Don't disappoint us or we'll tear you to shreds. This is Bloodbath. Countdown from... Yeah, I mean, like, put your heart into it, man. Get some more chips in the middle. What are you here for? Really? You're here to, like, bet 30.94? If you're gonna bet half pot, at least bet 32.07. Wait, that's not half pot. What's half of that? 32.67? 57. In other words, if you're not gonna think, at least just press the half pot button, rather than, like, typing in some weird number that's, like, just under half pot.
Probably, like, press the like 40% pot button or something. I don't know. I think there's either two. I mean, there's a few things it could be, but this either might be like not understanding greed theorem, which is important to understand, or it's not understanding what we're going to get called by. Like, what's the bulk of villains range that can bluff catch this river?
Love it. You didn't say targeting. I like it.
Yeah, I know, right? I literally avoided that as much as possible. How do I say this without saying targeting?
Targeting is such a good word that it's hard not to say it, guys.
It's hard not to say it. Yeah, but I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to find what is the bulk of his river calling range and tailor our sizes our bluffs and our value to that size.
Yep.
To be honest, I think in this spot we can play a bit exploitatively, and we can use, if we're going to bluff like a random 6-7 of clubs combo, we can actually just use a very small size and get away with that, because they're very binary in their bluff catching, and they will bluff catch pot with any diamond or a lot of diamonds, and they will like fold 2 pair to like a third.
Agreed. Yeah, it's like big categories like boxing kind of going on. Chunking is the word going on in the human brain.
Yeah.
Here's a question. If you jam here, how often does the Jack of Diamonds fold?
I think very often. If this guy's a fish, I probably jam. But
jam is an interesting line against the fish, and against the reg, bluff jam might be an interesting line as well, maybe.
Well, the problem with bluff jamming is he does have Queen of Diamonds there very often, so I don't feel very happy.
Of course.
Like,
you can't really block it. Yeah.
Queen of Diamonds. It's like impossible to block it. So it's one of those spots where I'm not very happy shoving 200 big blinds as a bluff.
I agree.
And I think that we want to construct our bluffs in a very unbalanced way and bluff small when we have a hand that we want to bluff with. Make him fold his 2 pairs and 1 pair hands, like Queen 10. I don't know what the 1 pair hands, but there will be folds. And then like basically not try to make him fold a diamond on the river.
Yep.
And that's it.
Do you know what I just did there, actually? I actually thought I could have the Queen of Diamonds blocker and yet be bluffing in some universe.
And yet not have the nuts. Yeah, it's a tough spot where having the blocker means you have the nuts. So you can't block the nuts in these spots. Yeah, fine.
Okay, final hand of this episode of Bloodbath. There will be way more of these, by the way, on the Carrot Corner subscription site that we're bringing to you next year. We will maybe do one more for you guys on YouTube that haven't joined up the Carrot Corner. By the way, it's not live yet, so don't do it now. But there'll be loads of these, if you like the format, coming on the Carrot Corner site early 2024. Kings, King of Clubs, King of Spades, go for the open. 3-bet from cutoff, 4-bet, call. Another 4-bet pot. This is one of the boards I believe you can use like half pot on and stuff, right? That's like one of the size up boards, potentially.
You can definitely use half pots on these low boards. I don't, I just go 1/3, but you can.
Sure.
The main hand that does it is Queens, though, I think. I don't think Aces does it very often, but I think it's like a very segregated range where Queens wants to just pile money in as soon as possible. So Queens and a variety of bluffs do it.
Queens, basically, and their battalion of crap hands are going to go half pot here in GTO, and that's because the Queens are the perfect sweet spot between equity for value betting and useful fold equity, i.e. denying equity in a big way. Because villain can have ace-king here, and you don't really care about that when you have aces, but when you have queens, the fold equity is useful.
Pretty much, yeah.
Or ace-5.
Ace-5. Ace-5, yeah.
Okay, half
so
pot.
we do got half pot. Cool.
Nice.
I'm completely okay with that.
So I think this is one of the textures where you can play jam. So usually in 4-bet pots, you're going to 1/3, 1/3 all in. You're going to do like a kind of geometric 1/3ing type thing all the way through. Here, however, you've made the pot slightly bigger on the flop already. There's a flush draw present, and there are pocket pairs like, although there aren't in these positions actually. I was going to say there's 5s and 4s, but actually there aren't. But there are ace-5 and ace-4. Yeah, I might still 1/3 here actually, but it's not far away from a spot you might jam. I think I'd still play 1/3 check here though, as my toolkit.
I'm just thinking, are there any downsides to jamming? I don't
With
really
this
see that
hand,
many.
Probably not. I think if I'm bluffing, I like the idea of like
Small.
the 1/3 just being
Yeah,
better
yeah.
because people are going to underfold jacks and overfold like other stuff, I would imagine. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think jamming is like far from optimal in theory anyway. Like I think it's probably reasonable.
Well, I'm just trying to think, like, is there a downside in going all in? Like, I don't think check. I think actually once he calls half pot on the flop, I think I just want to jam.
Yeah, fair. I think if I had the King of Hearts instead of the King of Spades, I'm not saying I would check, but I'd be closer to checking because there'd be more air in villain's range, right? It'd be more like King Jack of Spades, etc.
I'm not even thinking of that. I'm just thinking he called half pot on the flop. I think he's got a hand that he's going to go with.
You're going with the caveman, I'm going to play against humans well strategy, whereas I'm going with the, well, actually, the difference between the heart and the spade is very impressive, and I want you all to think I'm very, very clever.
I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what
Well, it's just that he's going to call back doors with spades on the flop and then have air.
That's the thing.
Sometimes. More than without them. Let's go with that.
Fine, I agree with that. I'm just saying, as a human, I don't think like they just see half pot and like I don't care. I don't think he's gonna call the back door on the half pot.
Listen, Akshar.
I just think he's got jacks and queens. I'm just going.
You're trying to argue with me when I don't even disagree with you, mate.
I'm not arguing. I'm not trying to argue. I'm just trying to demonstrate to the audience that in this spot, like I don't really care much for theory, like what he should be doing. I just care that I think his density of his range is queens, jacks, tens, and those hands they might fold, they might not fold. I don't really care about that, but I want to get the money in against those hands.
Cool.
Quite fast.
Yep, I think jam is totally fine here. I think he's going to jam. 3.
I hope so.
2. 1. We do
Lovely.
jam. Yep,
Beautiful.
seems good. And we get the fold this time. But yeah, overall, Final diagnosis, what would you say to Hero here? Make it like 30 seconds of final feedback here for our hero today. What would you tell him?
Man, I'm not good at condensing things like that.
All right, 1 minute. 1 minute.
You need to work on your polarization issues. I think you need to do a better job of understanding what villain's range looks like and how to construct your bet sizes depending on that. And I think you need to do a better job of, well, that's all I got, because I don't remember if the last one was in the other video we did. So